Hello, my name is Justin Stairs, and we're here in the Brussels Signal studio, and we're delighted to have Hermann Tertsch with us today. Mr. Tertsch is the one of the ECR vice chairs and is a member of the Spain's Vox party. There are 4 members of the Vox party in the European Parliament. He's been a member since 2019. And we're here to talk about a few subjects. Obviously, there are the Spanish elections coming up and there are European elections now. But before we do, could you please, Mr. Tertsch, just give us a few minutes on your political career? I know it's been very varied. In fact, we could say that you started out as a communist. Is that fair?
Well, as a teen, I was a communist when Franco was dying. I mean, 75, I was 17. I entered in these years. I entered the communist youth when I was in school in Bilbao, but when I was 20 and the constitution was approved in Spain, the democratic constitution, 5 years after Franco's death, I was already an anti-communist.
Already, okay. And so the militancy started at a young age,
yeah.
But then you became a journalist.
Then I became a journalist, yeah. I was 40 years a journalist till 19. I have been almost a journalist all over the place.
Throughout your career,
I have been, yeah.
Until recently.
I have been an editorial. I have been a correspondent in Eastern Europe, in the Balkans, in the war, in the Middle East, in Germany. I mean, I've done almost a bit of everything, and I've done TV.
This is for El País and for ABC, right?
El País first, 22 years. I was deputy editor of El País. I was the chief of EDOPE section in El País for 3 years. And then I remained an editorialist and traveled for El País as a special correspondent in 2007.
Right.
And then I switched to ABC, and meanwhile I did this first 3 years, 2008, I guess, to 11. I did this TV program,
Radio
de la Noche, in Telemadrid.
This was with interviews like we're doing now,
It was a news program, 1 hour from 12 to 1.
Right.
With a big, strong editorial first. I would say it has been the only real right-wing news program on Spanish public TV since 77.
And so what made you decide to become a politician?
Well, I was offered by the president of Vox, by Santiago Abascal, who is a friend of mine, a long-time friend of mine. We met many years before that because I'm half Basque.
Right.
He's Basque, and we did with his father, my family and his father did together the campaigns in the Basque country for the People's Party, which were very dangerous with ETA, with the terrorism there, and for giving support. We were living in Madrid. I was living outside. But they were living in Madrid, and they went to support the voting stations because of the threats that everybody had in these years under ETA and the violent groups of ETA. No?
Right.
And so we were good friends since then. We were in a foundation in defense of the Spanish nation together, and the nice. And then finally, in the year 2019, when I was thinking I was traveling a little bit, writing my columns and so on, living mostly on the near Madrid, but on the countryside, he offered me to come into the list. And I must say, I had been defending the necessity of creating a new conservative party, a real conservative party in Spain, to have a real democratic conservative alternative to the left, to this destructive left in Spain. And when Santiago Abascal did it, and they made the party, and he offered me to be inside, I had to say yes.
You had to say yes. Okay. Well, in that case, let's talk about Spanish politics. This is we're here at the beginning of July. The elections are coming up very fast. Do you have a prediction? Well, are you going to be able to put together a right-wing coalition with the Partido Popular in Spain? Is it going to happen? I know that it's happening locally already, but what's your prediction?
It is happening locally. We will see. I won't say. I'm not sure what the final intentions of Mr. Feijóo of the People's Party will be. I know we have offered our hand for doing a solid government, but it depends on the figures, depends on the correlations of forces, and it depends if it really sums up, because we have to have enough to defeat not only socialists and communists, but socialist, communists, and all the separatist groups and anti-Spanish groups,
right?
Who are all of them forming a majority with Sanchez. So it's not only we have to have a solid absolute majority to have a government, and then we have to have a real disposition to be ready, a readiness of Mr. Feijóo to have a conservative policy,
right? Yeah,
and not a centrist leftist policy,
right?
As the People's Party uses to have.
Because you've been very critical, in fact, of Mr. Feijóo and the Partido Popular.
I have been very critical of all the parties like the Partido Popular, which have been since many years, since decades, harvesting conservative votes, and finally only executing a leftist ideology. I mean, the best example is, of course, Mrs. Merkel. Mrs. Merkel, who literally kidnapped the CDU and made of the CDU a kind of better dressed SPD. That makes no sense. That's a betrayal to democracy. And it's a kind of a great cheating of the conservative vote.
Right, and I heard this when I interviewed Charlie Weimers, one of your ECR colleagues here a week ago. I mean, it's fair to say that the right-wing parties or the right-wing group, your right-wing group, is actually quite angry with the mainstream right-wing, the EPP party.
Well, we ask them to be a little bit honest. If they are proposing some conservative policies, when they come to power, please do them, execute them,
right?
Apply them. That hasn't been the case in Spain. In Spain, you had Rajoy with an absolute majority. He didn't touch one single law of the most leftist and destructive period of Zapatero.
Right.
Zapatero with enormous amount of ideology for dividing Spaniards, for putting into the whole political life the sectarian division of the Civil War, who he brought in. He made this huge revenge program of the memoria histórica, which he called
the historical memory,
which is the manipulation of the past in favor of the present agitation for sectarian policies. This is Zapatero, but this is now Sanchez in an intensity which is unknown. I mean, the aggressiveness which the Spaniards who have loyalties, different conservative loyalties, the aggressiveness from the side of the government, in alliance, as I say, with separatists.
We'll talk about. I'd like to,
Catalonia and
I'd like to touch on the separatism question. I noticed on your Twitter feed today you have no al golpe de Estado, no to the coup d'état. What does that mean, please?
Well, I mean, it's a no al golpe de Estado means that no to the coup d'état, the permanent coup d'état,
The permanent coup d'état,
which is driven by Sanchez.
Okay.
Sanchez is acting in this way, with all the way he has been governing, has been ruling this for years.
Right.
It has been an absolute disaster for the cohesion of the nation, and he has really reactivated the hate. In Spain, we had surmounted this awful situation of the civil war after 40 years of Franco. First in a very tough dictatorship in the 40s, but then increasingly open up and being an authoritative. It was an authoritarian regime, but opening up. The Spanish society had grown out of the hate. So when we arrived in the death of Franco, the society was all over this period of this Spanish civil war, and we were in the 80s. I remember in the 80s we never spoke about Franco. Franco was 5 years dead, but nobody spoke about Franco. We all spoke about future. Nobody spoke about the civil war. It was completely out of the question to have conversations about the civil war. We were talking about the future. And suddenly after 2000, when 2004, after the bombs in Atocha in Madrid, 3 days later, in an absolute complete change of overturn of the results, Zapatero appears as winning, as the winner there. Suddenly, the civil war becomes the daily item to discuss, and the politicum, the absolute politicum, is the civil war and the hate between the two parts in Spain.
So it's being relived.
And so Zapatero relives everything for political purposes,
right?
And gets it up, although it was not there, as I say. And now they have, with Sanchez and so on, it's complete. I mean, the hate work that the left has done all these years, 20 years almost now. It's from 2004. Next year it will be 20 years from the bombs in Atocha, which brought the left to power, because it was sure that it was an absolute majority for the Partido Popular 10 minutes before the bombs. 3 days later, we had Zapatero in power. And so that changed completely Spanish history, but it changed also the narrative in Spain. So the narrative of Spain, which was really looking forward to the future, suddenly, abruptly, was brought into a narrative of the confrontation of the past and of the fascists. Suddenly, the fascists were, as I say, who is not left, who is not socialist or anti-Spanish or separatist or communist. He is a fascist automatically.
Okay.
And that's the way they created the climate in which Spain slowly went in.
Now, could we position Spain, though, in a general European context? Because the polarization that you've talked about, that's happening in lots of countries, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
we were probably, as we were in the 20th century, in the 30s, we were a little bit, regretfully, we are precursors. We are the avant-garde in the disasters, and so in this polarization came in Spain through this revival of the civil war, which was completely artificial. Came there, and then we have had a polarization in the whole Europe, which has in itself, it's not. We have a cultural aspect of the Civil War, but it has one thing which is, I would say, definitely for all Europe, and that is the left has invented a reality which does not fix with reality itself, and so we're being driven apart by this narrative of ideological narrative, which is every time stronger and in a more aggressive way, tearing apart the reality from the ideological position.
Okay,
of the progressive movement, let's call it.
So, but now you're in Brussels, and obviously here, you've touched already twice on separatism and Catalan separatism, and here we have Mr. Puigdemont, who has taken refuge, we could say. I know that the European Court of Justice has just ruled this week. I've seen in your online work that you're critical of Brussels for not condemning the separatist movement in it, right? Can you talk a bit about that, please?
I mean, there was no loyalty whatsoever from Europe to Spain when Spain was in these difficulties in 2017. We had a putsch, a coup d'etat. I mean, they declared a part of Spain. They broke a group of politicians in the institutions in Catalonia, as they did in the year 1934, 2 years before the beginning of the Civil War. What they did is say, I mean, we break up the sovereignty of Spain, and this peace, we keep this peace for ourselves, and we take it, we torn it apart.
So you see what happened basically as the EU, the Brussels institutions, supporting the separatism?
No, they didn't support it. But there was no clear support for Spain when it was necessary.
Okay.
To say clearly,
there was no condemnation.
To say clearly, I mean, these are the putschs, and when they flew and they arrived here, I mean, these people should have been taken immediately to Spain. I mean, we deliver every criminal to Britain, and Britain not being now in the EU, but even so, I mean, in Europe, we deliver criminals to the country in an extradition, which normally is a very quick and fast extradition. We have pedophiles, German pedophiles being extradited in 15 days or in 10 days. Why don't we have the right to have our people, our criminals being delivered to us?
And why?
And then because they started to make doubts about the legitimacy of the political coup so they were questioning in itself the Spanish nation and the Spanish sovereignty.
Right.
And that is what happened here in the courts, in the European Court, and that happened. But it happened as well in the different capitals of Europe and in Brussels, where they didn't do what was normal and what should have been the absolute normal thing. That is, we are a community of democratic sovereign countries,
right?
And the criminals, if we deliver the criminals to France, to Belgium, to other places, we can expect that everyone who is being asked for in Spain should have been delivered immediately. And 4 years later, we have still Mr. Puigdemont. I have to be on the same parliament like Mr. Puigdemont, who is a criminal and who should be in jail, like all the others who have been condoned now and pardoned by Sanchez, because Sanchez needs them, and because Sanchez is an accomplice he's now ruling with the putschis.
Have you met Mr. Puigdemont in the European Parliament?
Sure.
What kind of conversation did you have?
Well, I always told him that sooner or later he would go to prison.
And what did he say to you?
Nothing. He smiled.
Okay. I guess his future maybe is to a certain extent wrapped up in the separatist discourse
He will
in
be,
Belgium.
He will be pardoned as the others if Sanchez wins. In any case, the thing is, he would have been now on the street without anything, and with his amnesty that the others became gods. No,
Right? Yes.
The Junqueras and all the other people are free. They were condemned, sentenced to 13 years prison, only 13 years for a coup, which is normally 30. But they got 13, but they were months later, they were on the street, or 1 year later, I don't know what.
So you're saying if he had given himself up, he would be a free man now?
Free man now. Yeah. Now he will have probably problems because he's an isolated, there are 3 isolated cases. But anyway, I don't think he will, as there is the other people are free, I don't think he will be in prison as much as he deserves. He will only be trialed probably. But they are going to try to repeat it because the separatist movement has been nurtured by the left in Spain, because the left in Spain made a kind of reading of history that, as Franco was a strong defender of the unity, they identify unity, they put the unity of Spain more or less on the right. They think the nation is something rightist, or even fascist, no? And so we had this complete systematic support of the left, of the Spanish left, for the anti-Spanish groups in Valencia, in Baleares, in Catalonia, in the Basque Country.
But now,
and so what we don't have is a national left. We don't have we had a national left in the 70s, in the 80s, even with Felipe González. They spoke about Spain and they defended in itself Spain. No?
Right.
But we don't have it anymore. There is no national left anymore.
I'm interested to know how you see your country now that you're based in Brussels for the last 4 years. Have your opinions changed in any way of your country?
No, I know my country quite well. I've read a lot about history of my country. I have been traveling all my life. I have been living abroad. I would say most part of my life I've been at least traveling,
right, of course,
or living abroad. So for me, it's nothing new to see Spain from outside.
Right.
So I was in Vienna when I was 32, 23.
Right.
I was in Bonn then, and in Poland. I was traveling. I was traveling then afterwards without any stop.
Well, what I meant, I guess, was the fact that you've mentioned, in fact, in some of your previous speeches, that you see the European Union as somehow wishing to dismantle the nation state. Is that fair?
That's another thing. But that's not an opinion on Spain. That's an opinion on the European Union.
Okay.
The European Union has become a force, a very ideological force, which is against the nations. It wants to suppress and dissolve and dissolve the nations by immigration and by getting all the sovereignty of these countries and punishing these countries if these countries want to defend their sovereignty, as we are seeing. I mean, we are seeing that the Commission is acting as if it was a government of a state. And that is damn dangerous because it's not written in any treaty what is happening today. And what is happening today is that we have a government which takes decisions which are imposed in this rubber stamp parliament, which has been till now only this yes sayer for the Commission, and the Commission, which was never supposed to be that, is now ruling. Von der Leyen is taking decisions with a kind of a sovereignty which she doesn't have.
Which decisions do you refer to?
Nobody expected to have.
Right.
And which is against the treaties.
What kind of decisions are you referring to?
Punishing of Hungary because of of the education, LGTB. I mean, there is not one single word in no treaty that Mrs. von der Leyen or the Commission has any competence about education. What are they? When we ask here in Brussels, we ask to defend the right in Spain to go to school in Spanish and to learn in Spanish in school. They say we have no competences about that.
Right.
No, I mean they say no, that's a national issue.
Right.
But for the LGBT in the education of Hungary, they are very competent.
Okay.
And they can withdraw thousands of millions of euros from Hungary.
They withdraw the funds. Right.
Withdrawing funds because they don't like the education in Hungary.
Right.
That's one example.
Okay.
But another example is the vaccines.
Okay.
I mean, Ms. von der Leyen buys vaccines in amounts which are absolutely extraordinary or bizarre. Bizarre at least.
Right.
And she signed some contracts with confidential
Clauses.
Yeah. I mean, confidential clauses which she can't tell to the parliament. And I mean, it's amazing stuff, no? And nobody, I mean, the big parties, they are these bipartisan, which means the Socialists and the People's Party.
Yeah.
And then when with these liberals there, and with the Greens, which are communists, with some ecological radicalism, and so on. They are all in the same pool. And they have no problem with doing the same kind of social democratic bunch of orders, and who cares what they are doing.
But is reform possible in Brussels? Can things change?
We hope that it is possible. We are very hopeful for the next elections for June. I think there could be a correlation of forces. We are growing everywhere, not only in Spain. We will be not 4, but we will be far more next year in July. And we will have all the conservatives and right parties will be stronger. So the real ones. And so the People's Party comes to an historical dilemma, because the People's Party will have to go to the divan, to Freud's divan, and say, well,
on the couch,
I'm
psychological
on the couch,
therapy,
and say, well, I am a social democrat, definitely, and I go with the social.
And they have an identity crisis. Is that what you mean?
Or I go with the conservatives, who are going to reform the European Union. And the reform of the European Union is not breaking it up. It's only subsidiarity. That's the magic word which they have been violating all the time now, and in an obscene way. No, subsidiarity. We do together what we can do, what we have to do together. The other things are sovereign, and the Finnish socialists have nothing to say about how the crops and the harvesting in Andalusia is done, no? Or water supply, or anything else. Neither we have no competence whatsoever on Polish or on Hungarian or on German.
Subsidiarity is the answer.
Subsidiarity and sovereignty.
Mr. Tertsch, we have to leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in.